So our fund, we were kind of known originally for all the SaaS stuff we did, because I started after Palantir at Adapar and OpenGov and backed early like Blend and all these other things that are big SaaS companies, a lot more public SaaS companies, a lot more huge private SaaS companies. And that was really a wave from 2009 to about 2021, 22. And our view of this is you want to back like really top talent doing things that are newly possible. And when we were backing these SaaS companies, most of the time their competition was something not just from pre-cloud or pre-internet.
Isn't it fascinating how the right timing can make or break a new tech venture? Backing talent doing what's only recently possible seems crucial, especially in tech where innovation moves at lightning speed.
So you're basically, you can say, Joe, oh, you're so smart. You got all these things to work from like 2013, 14, 15. It's like really smart tech guys who are kind of beating up on legacy companies. So obviously need to be replaced, right? And so we just did this dozens and dozens of times. Fast forward 2024, that playbook is probably not going to work right now, because if you show me a SaaS company, good chance you're competing against a post-cloud company because the spaces have all been taken up. They're all there. And so, okay, what do you do now? And this AI thing is really interesting because in a way, what AI is doing, if you want to look at it this kind of like obnoxious, like capitalist kind of way, is it's opening up other parts of the economy that are pre-internet that we can beat up on again, right? Or fix if we want to be positive. So we have all these companies that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, doing certain types of services, logistics billing, healthcare billing, insurance, TPA, back office work, like trusted estate management, whatever the hell it is. It's been around since 1970 or 80 or 50. And we're able to say, wait a second, we could do this better at a fraction of the cost. And so there's two themes. One is just to do it better and grow organically. And two is to start doing it better, growing organically, and then start buying the old ones, because the old ones are these boring companies that are trading at maybe 8 times cash flow. And suddenly you could triple the cash flow after you buy it. And so we're doing this at scale now in a bunch of areas. So just like we had this big SaaS wave, we now have this big AI services wave. And this is really my day job is there's doing that at scale in lots of different ways and figuring it out. And I'm trying to publish some pieces on it. It's really interesting how the Palantir ontology stuff works out here, because you really have to map out the services and workflows and the percent profits and which areas you can go after. I'm pretty obsessed with this. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to do it a couple dozen times well over the next 5 years. So I think it's a big theme.
The strategy here is brilliantly bold. Instead of focusing on already saturated SaaS markets, Palantir is targeting legacy sectors, some of which haven't seen innovation in half a century. By leveraging AI to improve workflows and reduce costs, they're not only revamping the service itself, but setting the stage for exponential growth.
Owning the customer is critical in these days. What I've pointed out to a bunch of these guys, not everyone can map the processes and map the data, but the key differentiator is going to be who owns the customer. And that's why buying the company is so interesting.
100%. And there are places where we've surprised ourselves with organic growth because we're so much better than the old guys that we haven't had to buy it. But in general, I think the organic side is underestimated. And you're right, it's like $4.5 trillion of wages and services in the US. And our estimates is about a third of that's addressable. So, I mean, this is just a giant wave. So, I mean, there's got to be, and people are like, oh, you're going to replace jobs. I mean, if we are successful at this, the productivity boom to the world, and especially to the US, is just so massive. The US will be a much wealthier country if this works over the next decade. And I think it will. I mean, this could actually get us out of our debt problems, which is really funny because I think it's like, if you look at our debt deficit problem, it's a black pill. I mean, it's a mess getting out of that for the world. This actually could solve it. So it's such a positive thing. So we're going to do our best on it.
The potential here goes beyond individual companies. By reimagining how sectors like services and logistics work, we could see an era of unprecedented productivity. It's exciting to think this might fuel economic growth on a scale large enough to impact national issues like debt, creating lasting benefits beyond just profitability.
I asked Jamie Dimon recently whether he thought America was bankrupt. He said, no, we have like 14 trillion of actual assets against the debt. So I don't think we're bankrupt, but boy, are we headed to some insolvency potentially.
We got to stop spending money like drunken sailors, Michael. It's embarrassing. There's tens of thousands of NGOs that are corrupt, sucking at the teat, and we're just throwing money around the world and throwing money at random nonsense. The more you look at the budget, the more it's infuriating. So yeah, we got to turn this down.
The frustration with unchecked spending is real, and it raises a key question. How much longer can we sustain this without real consequences? Tightening the reins might be the only way forward if we want to avoid fiscal turmoil.
So last couple of questions. So recent interview on CNBC, you said that there's growing frustration among the tech industry about the government and politics holding back innovation. How is politics holding back innovation? And do you think, I think you've been an open supporter of former President Trump. Do you think he can change that actually?
we're in an interesting time, obviously, and I don't think either presidential candidate is perfect. I am supporting the right and supporting Donald Trump versus Biden, now versus Kamala. I think she's actually worse. Part of the reason we started supporting him is because we're so afraid of her, seeing what she did to California and what that brand of politics did to California. But in general, a lot of people in tech were pretty apolitical for a long time. I think when you're building on the internet and you're building in these like cyber worlds, you kind of could just like abstract away government. It's there, but it's not really in your business. It doesn't really understand what you're doing. It's not bothering you. It's mostly cheering you on, and even in some cases giving you subsidies. So it's like basically the tech world is like, yeah, government's fine. It's great. They're all moderate Democrats. Let's just be nice to everyone and treat people fairly. Because I get that's fair. I mean, I think it's very reasonable for them to have been that way. And then what's happening is that suddenly the parts of tech that are helping grow productivity, that are fixing things, are interacting with the real world a lot more now. We're doing things in finance, we're doing things to fix healthcare. In every one of these areas, you start to run up against the SEC, you start to run up against the FTC, the DOJ, the healthcare regulators. You're like, wait a second, this is like all these people who are like pretty dumb are like putting in like stupid rules that are stopping me from fixing these things. And it's like obviously pretty corrupt and it's incompetent. And you're like, this doesn't make any sense. And a lot of these people are like running based on not liking me because somehow they're demonizing me for my success now. And I'm trying to use this to fix things. So all these people are like, what's going on here? Like we're like smart people getting other smart people to like solve problems in these areas. And the government's making it impossible. The regulators making it impossible. And they're doing it in unfair and weaponized ways. Like, okay, this is obviously wrong. And it started like when they really came after Elon in ways that were obviously weaponized. And it's not like this was like all of a sudden new. Like the last 5 or 6 years, one of my friends, I'm not going to say who, he helped start PayPal. You can guess one of the many names. Has like a big fintech company, and his fintech company is growing fast. And they give loans, and they have to deal with Elizabeth Warren's CFPB, and he's like terrified to say anything bad about them because he says they're basically like the mafia. They're going to come and they're going to attack me. And obviously their rules are stupid. The rules make no sense. Like any loan you give has to have disparate impact, based on the fact that like Hispanics and Asians and white and black people are not the same. So you're going to have disparate impact, but it's illegal to have disparate impact. But it's impossible not to, but mathematically. So these people are just like retarded. And so you start having things like this where you're dealing with like just retarded government to break things. And it's like, what do you do? And like a lot of them, their answer is just shut up and don't say anything because they're going to come after you. But when you hear this enough times and you have dozens of examples of these broken things, you finally start getting people say, wait a second, this is a problem. We can't have these people holding back our country.
And these stories of government interference in tech are concerning. Innovators facing hurdles from regulators signals a major disconnect between progress and policy. Bridging this gap may be essential if we want to keep driving forward on issues like healthcare and defense.
What do you think about Europe in this context? I was just on Harry Stebbings' podcast. I told him if I was this entrepreneur, I would never start a company in Europe these days. I think the EU regulators are just too tight. Everything you need to do today, because it involves AI, because it involves disrupting services, is just going to disrupt something that touches politics.
You're just going to be stopped by them. You're going to be demonized by them. You're going to be hated by them. You can virtue seal it for long enough, but they're going to come after you. No, like PayPal was almost killed by our regulators. If PayPal was killed by our regulators, like Elias Spitzer came like within days of killing PayPal before it was bought by eBay. He was really close. He tried really hard. Like that would have killed SpaceX and Tesla. I wouldn't have been able to do Palantir because you wouldn't have had the money to back us early on. Like this whole giant entrepreneurial ecosystem that emerged out of these companies would not exist in the US if the regulators had been a little bit stronger. Like people don't realize how freaking dangerous these things are. And Europe just had like a little bit stronger, a little bit stupider, a little bit more broken regulators, and boom, it's like there go like hundreds of companies that would have existed in Europe that don't now because they were just able to kill off some of these things that they weren't barely not able to kill off in the US. This is a serious thing for civilization.
Imagine the world without Tesla, SpaceX, or Palantir. That's the kind of loss Europe risks by over-regulating. Too many potentially world-changing companies may simply never emerge under such restrictive environments. It's a high price to pay.
What you just said was one guy, Elliot Spitzer, turned out to be very corrupt in many different ways. They didn't just almost kill PayPal, by the way, and hurt Wall Street at the time, but because entrepreneurship is an ecosystem that pays it forward, he would have killed off SpaceX, which has put America back in space leadership and defense leadership. He would have killed off Palantir, which has put America in the lead in data for defense or AI for defense and running government companies, and could have killed off all the 9 other defense companies because this whole chain of events would have never happened.
Palantir literally blocked over a dozen major attacks that would have happened in both in America, but also Israel. So, I mean, this guy would have led to the deaths of a huge number more people, would have led to a lot more horrible war. And it's not just Palantir, it's all these companies, you know. It's tough.
Spitzer's actions weren't just about putting PayPal on the line. He was playing with the future of America's leadership in space, defense, and even AI. It's easy to overlook how intertwined tech and defense are, but SpaceX has restored America's leadership in space exploration, and Palantir has revolutionized data-driven defense. Overregulation in those moments wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a potentially catastrophic misstep.
People, like nobody, you know, he could have killed it, but he's gone.
Yeah.
But
no one would have known that all those deaths were on his hand. But that is what happens when you have regulators. Like this, Michael, is like the difference in politics today. Like if you want to say, how does politics work today? There are people who are system level thinkers who care about systems and who have IQs that are high enough to understand systems, to understand the point we just made. If you do this thing, it leads to this bad outcome. It destroys all these things. It destroys all these things in society. And there's people who do not understand systems. And so they think in terms of people and emotions. And all they think of is like, oh, Donald Trump was recorded saying this. I don't like him. I don't like him, so I'm against him. You have like these people who are just purely about people and emotions, and you have systems. And like we need more system level thinkers. Otherwise, we're in trouble. So we got to do our best.
What do you think happens to the tax rate if Harris is elected?
No, it's fair.
Yeah.
Listen, I obviously think lower taxes is better, but I mean, I would be fine to pay like way higher taxes myself just to have a competent functioning society. I want to be clear about that. Like I am not voting for lower taxes here. Like
That's not my question. My
I
question
like
is different.
lower taxes and they're better, but like I would literally pay a 90% tax rate. I'm fucking rich, Michael. I would pay a 90% tax rate if we could keep our society competent, if we could stop having illegals swarm into our country, if we can fire accountable bureaucrats, if we can put systems into place to make our government competent, harass and destroy and impugn, builders. Like I will pay whatever taxes that takes. I'll pay like 90% of my fortune because like we need our country to be functional for my kids and grandkids and everyone else to live in a functional society. I think that's like the important point here. Like that this is not about saving some dollars on taxes. Like this is about saving our civilization.
Lower taxes are often touted as the goal, but for those who understand the stakes, it's not just about taxes. If the price of higher taxes is a more competent, functioning government, then many would agree that paying more is worth it. It's about ensuring our society can handle the complex challenges we face, from immigration to bureaucracy. If the government could just be competent again, many would pay whatever taxes are necessary to restore order and efficiency.
Your podcast is called American Optimist. Why are you still an optimist?
Because there's a lot of amazing things going on in the world. They're going to make people live longer. There's good answers to all of our problems. We're going to fight with the principles that helps create our country and our civilization, and we're going to win. It's just a tough fight.
Drew insisted I ask you as an almost final question. Like, what's the closest?
Oh, this is like one of the Peter Thiel things where you have to that's very funny. What's the closest to a woke view I hold? The closest to a woke view I hold is probably that I have a ton of people I work with who are gay and lesbian, who are awesome. And I think people are naturally that way and that we shouldn't attack them for it. And they should be allowed to get married and should be treated kindly. And I actually even think that although I think most of the trans thing is like a socially viral phenomenon and most of these people are not trans, there actually are people who are trans and actually are people who are naturally that way. And they probably shouldn't be men and women sports, but it doesn't mean that I don't think they should be given dignity for being God's children and being fellow human beings. So as much as I don't like this is like an obsession of our society, I don't think we should be demonizing everyone as trans, just the same way I respect the gay and lesbians I work with as well. So, I don't know if that's woke. That's my take on it.
What makes you vulnerable?
Makes you vulnerable? My daughters.
All right. And with that, I want to let you get back to your very, very busy day. They wanted me to ask you about your hobbies, but I don't sense you have time for many hobbies to become world-class and given everything you're doing.
I was a chess champion as a kid, and we still play some games every once in a while.
Do you play with your daughters?
I do a little bit, though. I walked into the room the other day, and the pieces were getting married. So, we're still working on the competition.
Barbie chess is next.
There's a lot to be optimistic about. While it's easy to get bogged down by the challenges we face, it's essential to recognize that there are amazing advancements happening. People are living longer, and there are real solutions to the world's problems. And most importantly, there are individuals stepping up, showing courage, and holding firm to the principles that shaped our civilization. We may face tough battles ahead, but we are in a fight worth fighting, and we have the strength and vision to win.